Every whisper died. "We are gathered here to address a crime of great weight," Kethovoran said. His voice was calm, but those who knew him could hear the tension beneath. "A member species of this concord has violated our most sacred principle. They have attacked a civilization that had not yet achieved contact status. They have brought war to a people who did not know we existed." A murmur ran through the assembly. This was serious. Pre-contact species were protected. They were meant to develop on their own until they were ready to join the galactic community. To attack them was unthinkable. At the center of the room stood Ambassador Grixnell of the Vorith Dominion. He was tall and thin, with a hard shell covering his body. His head was like an insect, with large dark eyes and mandibles that clicked when he was nervous. They were clicking now. Behind him, a holographic display showed a planet. It was small and blue and green, with white clouds swirling across its surface. It looked peaceful. It looked beautiful. "Ambassador Grixnell," Kethovoran said, "you represent the Vorith Dominion. Your people stand accused of launching an unprovoked military assault on this world. You killed millions of its inhabitants. You destroyed their cities. You brought fire and death to a species that had done nothing to you." Grixnell's mandibles clicked faster. "Honored Arbiter, I must explain. The Dominion believed this action was justified. Our scouts studied this world for many cycles. The inhabitants were primitive. They fought among themselves constantly. They were polluting their own atmosphere. They had barely reached their own moon. We thought they would be easy to conquer. We thought they posed no threat." "You thought wrong," said a voice from the assembly. Grixnell turned. The speaker was a Dralathi, a small creature that looked like a bundle of gray tentacles inside a glass suit. The Dralathi were known for their intelligence and their caution. This one was trembling. "Do you know what world you attacked?" the Dralathi asked. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" "It is a minor planet," Grixnell said. "In a small system at the edge of the spiral arm. The inhabitants call it Earth. They call themselves humans. They are nothing special." The chamber exploded into noise. Delegates shouted. Some screamed. A Morthian counselor, a being made of flowing liquid, pulled itself into a tight ball. A creature with wings wrapped them around its body like a shield. Kethovoran slammed his hand against the podium. The sound echoed like thunder. Silence returned, but it was a frightened silence now. "You assaulted Earth?" Kethovoran said slowly. Each word was heavy. Each word carried weight. His 6 eyes were wide, and for the first time in living memory, the High Arbiter looked afraid. The council stared in shock. Grixnell looked around the chamber. He did not understand. Why were they reacting this way? The humans were primitives. They had simple weapons, simple ships. They should have fallen easily. "I do not understand," he said. "What is so special about these humans? They are just another species. They are weak. They are divided. They fight among themselves over resources and beliefs. How can they be a threat?" An old Selvari diplomat rose from his seat. His name was Veth Oren, and he had lived for 9,000 cycles. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve and die, and he had studied humans. "Ambassador," Veth Oren said, "let me tell you about the humans. They are young. Their civilization is only a few thousand cycles old. In that time, they have fought over 4,000 major wars among themselves. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their own world many times over. They have survived ice ages, plagues, and disasters that would have ended most species." He paused and looked directly at Grixnell. "They are the most violent species we have ever observed. They do not give up. They do not surrender. When they are pushed, they push back harder. They adapt faster than any species in our records. They learn from their enemies and use that knowledge to destroy them." Grixnell felt cold. "But our fleet was powerful. We had 300 ships, advanced weapons, superior technology. Had, Kethvorin said quietly. You said had. Tell us, Ambassador, where is your fleet now? Grixnal could not meet the Arbiter's eyes. Gone, he whispered. Most of it is gone. The humans, they did things we did not think possible. They learned our technology in days. They modified their weapons to penetrate our shields. They followed us when we retreated. They would not stop. The chamber was silent now. Every delegate understood what had happened. The Vorith had poked a sleeping predator, and the predator had woken up angry. There is more, Kethvorin said. Is there not? Grixnal nodded slowly. The humans have sent a representative. He is here. On this station, he wishes to address the council. The fear in the chamber grew thicker. The humans had not just survived. They had not just fought back. They had come here, to the heart of galactic civilization, to face those who had judged them primitive. Very well, Kethvorin said. We will hear from this human. But first, Ambassador Grixnal, you will tell us everything. You will explain exactly what your people did to Earth. And then you will explain how a primitive species brought the mighty Vorith dominion to its knees. Grixnal looked at the holographic image of Earth still floating behind him. Such a small world, such a fragile-looking planet. He had thought conquering it would be easy. He had been very, very wrong. You assaulted Earth? Part 2. 14 months before the tribunal, Earth was a normal world. People went to work, children went to school, families ate dinner together and watched television. Nobody knew that eyes from the stars were watching them. Nobody knew that ships larger than cities were moving through the darkness of space toward their small blue planet. Commander Daniel Hayes stood in the command center deep inside Cheyenne Mountain. The facility was built to survive nuclear war. It was buried under thousands of feet of solid rock. Screens covered every wall, showing data from satellites and radar stations around the world. Daniel had served for 20 years. He had seen many strange things appear on those screens, but he had never seen anything like this. Sir, said Lieutenant Katie Moore. She was young, only 26, but she was one of the best officers Daniel had ever worked with. Right now, her face was pale. Her hands were shaking slightly as she typed on her console. We are tracking over 200 unknown contacts entering the atmosphere. They are coming in over the Pacific Ocean. Daniel walked to her station. The screen showed red dots falling from the sky like rain. Each dot was moving too fast to be any aircraft he knew. Each dot was too large to be a missile. Get confirmation from every Allied station, Daniel ordered. London, Tokyo, Sydney, Beijing. I want to know if everyone is seeing this. Within minutes, the confirmation came. Every major tracking station on Earth was watching the same thing. Something was coming down from the sky. Something big. In Los Angeles, a young teacher named Megan Price was helping her students make paintings. The children were laughing and talking. Paint covered their small hands. It was a normal day in a normal classroom. Then a shadow fell over the building. Megan looked up through the window. Her heart stopped. A ship was descending from the clouds. It was black and angular, shaped like nothing she had ever seen. It was larger than anything she had ever imagined. Weapons on its surface began to glow with terrible light. She grabbed the children and ran. The first strike hit downtown San Diego at 2:14 in the afternoon. A beam of energy fell from the sky and turned 10 city blocks into ash in less than a second. Buildings that had stood for 100 years vanished. Thousands of people died before they could even scream. The second strike hit Manila in the Philippines. The third struck coastal Brazil. The fourth hit a small town in Australia that never made it to the news. Admiral Kevin Walsh received the reports aboard the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford. He was an old sailor with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in 2 wars. He had seen death before, but not like this. Casualties are climbing past 300,000. said Lieutenant Ryan Torres, his aide. The young man looked sick. They are targeting civilian centers. They are not even acknowledging our communications. We have been broadcasting on every frequency. They are not responding. Kevin watched the report scroll across his screen. Cities burning, people dying, his world ending. Then we stopped talking, he said. His voice was cold and steady. And we start shooting. The first human counterattack was clumsy and desperate. Fighter jets flew toward the alien ships and launched every missile they carried. Most of the missiles exploded against invisible shields before they could do any damage. The jets were swatted from the sky like flies, but some of the missiles got through. One Vorith scout ship was flying low over Texas when a missile struck its engine. The ship spiraled down and crashed in the desert. American soldiers surrounded it within hours. When they cut their way inside, they found something amazing. The aliens could be killed. Daniel Hayes received the report at Cheyenne Mountain. The alien bodies had been recovered. Their technology was being studied. Scientists were already taking the ship apart piece by piece. They bleed, Daniel said quietly. They die. That means we can fight them. The war had begun. Across the world, humanity did something it had never done before. Nations that had been enemies for centuries worked together. Russia shared intelligence with America. China sent soldiers to help defend Japan. Old hatreds were forgotten because a new enemy had arrived. In a hospital in London, a nurse named Sophie Grant worked for 3 days without sleep. The wounded kept coming. Burn victims, crush victims. People pulled from collapsed buildings. She saved everyone she could. When she finally collapsed from exhaustion, another nurse took her place. In the ruins of Manila, a fisherman named Carlos helped pull survivors from the rubble. He had lost his own family in the first strike. He had nothing left. But he kept digging because others still needed help. In Moscow, an old general named Viktor Petrov opened the doors to bunkers that had been sealed since the Cold War. Inside were weapons that had been built to fight America. Now they would fight something else. The Vorith had expected easy conquest. Their records showed that primitive species always surrendered quickly. They would fight briefly, realize they could not win, and give up. It had happened hundreds of times before, but humans were different. On the 7th day, a group of scientists in Nevada made a breakthrough. They had been studying the wreckage of the crashed scout ship. Dr. Paul Harrison, a physicist with messy hair and tired eyes, finally understood how the alien shields worked. They use a frequency pattern, he explained to the military officers gathered around him. It cycles through a specific sequence. If we time our attacks to match the gaps in the cycle, we can punch through. Within 48 hours, the first modified missiles were ready. They were crude. They were rushed. But they worked. The Vorith command ship hung in orbit above North America. Commander Vrixtal watched the burning cities below with satisfaction. Conquest was going according to plan. The natives were fighting, yes, but they would fall eventually. They always did. Then alarms began to scream. A missile had penetrated the shields. It exploded against the hull, tearing a hole in the ship's side. Then another hit, and another. Vrixtal stared at the damage reports in disbelief. This was impossible. The natives were primitive. They could not have adapted this quickly, but they had. On the 12th day of the invasion, something changed. The alien ships stopped advancing. They pulled back. They retreated toward orbit. Admiral Kevin Walsh watched the tactical display. The red dots were moving away from Earth. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres said, "they are retreating." Kevin shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "they are running. There is a difference." He turned to his command staff. "I want every ship we have following them. Every missile, every fighter, every weapon we can launch into space." Torres looked confused. "Sir?" "They are leaving. Is that not what we wanted?" Kevin's eyes were hard as stone. "They came to our home. They killed our families. They burned our cities. His voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. They do not get to leave. The hunt was about to begin. You Assaulted Earth, Part 3. The world had changed forever. Cities lay in ruins. Millions were dead. But humanity was not broken. Humanity was angry. In a secret facility beneath the Nevada desert, scientists worked without rest. They had pieces of alien technology spread across dozens of tables. Every crashed ship, every fallen weapon, every fragment of alien metal was studied and taken apart. Dr. Paul Harrison led the team. He was a thin man with glasses and hair that had not been combed in weeks. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Coffee cups covered his desk. But his mind was sharp, and his mind had found something wonderful. "Look at this," he said to Dr. Laura Bennett, his partner. She was an engineer, brilliant with machines and systems. Together, they had made the breakthrough that punched holes in alien shields. Now they were working on something bigger. Laura studied the device on the table. It was an alien engine, pulled from a crashed transport ship. Inside were crystals that glowed with soft blue light. "It bends space," Laura whispered. "They do not travel through space like we do. They fold it. They jump from one point to another instantly." "Faster than light travel," Paul said. "We thought it was impossible. We were wrong." He smiled for the first time in weeks. "If we can understand this, we can build our own." Around the world, similar scenes were happening. In Germany, engineers studied alien weapons. In Japan, scientists analyzed alien communication systems. In Russia, military experts examined alien battle tactics. Humanity was learning, and humanity was learning fast. The aliens had been conquering other species for thousands of years. Their technology had not changed much in all that time. Why would it? Nothing had ever challenged them. Nothing had ever forced them to improve. But humans had been fighting each other for their entire existence. They had learned to adapt or die. They had learned to steal ideas from their enemies and make them better. They had learned that survival meant constant change. In 3 weeks, Earth had working shields based on alien technology. In 5 weeks, they had energy weapons. In 7 weeks, the first human ship with faster-than-light capability launched from a base in Australia. It was ugly, it was rushed, it was held together with welds and prayers. But it flew. On the ground, the fighting continued. The aliens still held several positions on Earth. Their soldiers were tall and strong, covered in hard shells that could stop bullets. Captain Nathan Drake led his battalion through the ruins of Phoenix. The city was gone. Only broken buildings and ash remained, but alien soldiers still moved through the wreckage, hunting for survivors. Nathan was 32 years old. Before the invasion, he had been thinking about leaving the military. He had wanted to become a teacher, maybe, or a farmer, something peaceful. Now he wanted only one thing, to make the invaders pay. "Contact ahead," whispered Sergeant Amy Rodriguez. She was crouched behind a fallen wall, her rifle ready. She was small but tough, a soldier who had survived 3 direct engagements with alien forces. Nathan raised his hand, signaling his soldiers to stop. Through the dust and smoke, he could see them. 3 alien soldiers, their weapons scanning the ruins. "New ammunition," Nathan said quietly. "Everyone loaded?" His soldiers nodded. The new bullets were made from alien metal, designed to crack alien shells, another gift from the scientists working day and night to give them better weapons. "On my mark," Nathan said. 3, 2, 1, now." The gunfire was brief and brutal. The alien soldiers fell. Their shells cracked. Their strange blood spilled onto the broken concrete. Nathan felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction. Just a cold determination to keep fighting until every last invader was gone. In orbit, the battle was turning. Human ships, crude but effective, engaged alien vessels. For every human ship destroyed, 2 alien ships fell. The enemy had better technology, but humans had numbers and fury and a willingness to die that the aliens could not understand. Admiral Kevin Walsh commanded the orbital defense from a station hastily built on the moon. He watched the battle unfold on screens that showed the space around Earth. "Enemy flagship is trying to retreat," reported Commander Lisa Chen. She was his second in command, a woman with short black hair and calm eyes that never showed fear. "Do not let it escape," Kevin ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the flagship." The alien flagship was massive. It was the command center for the entire invasion. If it escaped, it could bring reinforcements. It could tell others about Earth. It could start another invasion. It could not be allowed to survive. Human ships swarmed around the flagship like angry bees. They fired everything they had. Missiles and energy beams and kinetic projectiles slammed into the alien vessel. Its shields flickered and failed. Commander Vrixtal stood on the bridge of his dying ship. Alarms screamed. Fires burned. His crew was dead or dying around him. He did not understand. These were supposed to be primitives. They were supposed to fall easily. How had they done this? How had they turned certain defeat into victory? A human missile struck the bridge. Vrixtal had time for one final thought before the explosion took him. We made a terrible mistake. Back on Earth, people watched the alien flagship explode. They saw the fireball bloom in the night sky like a new star. They cheered and cried and held each other. But the war was not over. Other alien ships were fleeing. They were running toward the edge of the solar system, trying to escape into deep space. Lieutenant Ryan Torres stood beside Admiral Walsh on the moon base. "Sir, the remaining enemy ships are retreating. Should we let them go?" Kevin watched the fleeing ships on his screen. Somewhere out there was the alien homeworld. Somewhere out there were the leaders who had ordered the attack on Earth. "No," Kevin said. "We follow them. We find out where they came from, and we make sure they can never threaten us again." Ryan looked uncertain. "Sir, our ships are damaged. Our crews are exhausted. We do not even know how far we will have to travel." "I know," Kevin said. "But think about what happens if we let them go. They will tell others about us. They will say that we are weak. They will say that we can be conquered if someone just sends a bigger fleet." He shook his head. "We cannot allow that. We need to show the galaxy that attacking Earth has consequences. We need to show them that humans do not forgive, and we do not forget." The pursuit fleet assembled within days. It was small and battered, but it was determined. 50 ships, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never come home. They followed the fleeing aliens into the darkness between stars, and the galaxy would soon learn what happened when you made humanity angry. You assaulted Earth? Part 4. The Vorith had never been hunted before. For thousands of years, they had been the hunters. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had crushed species that tried to resist. They had built an empire on fear and fire. Now they were running for their lives. The remains of their invasion fleet limped through space. 23 ships had survived the battle for Earth. 23 ships out of 300. The rest were floating wreckage around that small blue planet that was supposed to be easy to conquer. Sub-Commander Threxval was now in charge. Commander Vrixtal was dead, along with most of the senior officers. Threxval was young and scared, but he tried to hide it from his crew. "How long until we reach Dominion space?" he asked. 6 cycles, answered his navigator. "If our engines hold together." 6 cycles. That seemed like a lifetime. Threxval wanted to be home. He wanted to forget about the nightmare planet called Earth and the monsters that lived on it. Then the alarms started screaming. "Sub-Commander!" the sensor officer shouted. "Contacts behind us! They followed us!" Threxval felt his blood turn cold. "Impossible! The primitives could not have faster than light travel. They were barely reaching their own moon. But the screen did not lie. A fleet of ships was emerging from jump space behind them. The ships were ugly and crude, covered in welded metal and exposed weapons. They looked like they had been built in a hurry by someone who did not care about beauty. They only cared about killing. Captain Chris Palmer commanded the human pursuit fleet from his ship, the Endeavor. It was a converted cargo vessel, stuffed with weapons and engines that the scientists had barely understood when they installed them. Chris was a former test pilot. He had flown experimental aircraft that should have killed him. He had survived crashes that should have ended his career. He was exactly the kind of person you wanted leading an impossible mission into unknown space. "Enemy fleet detected," reported Lieutenant Nicole Garcia. She was his weapons officer, a woman with steady hands and perfect aim. "They look damaged. They are trying to run." Chris smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Let them try. All ships maximum speed. Do not let them get away." The chase had begun. For 3 days, the human fleet pursued the Vorith survivors. Every time the aliens jumped to a new location, the humans followed within hours. Every time the aliens tried to hide, the humans found them. The Vorith did not understand. How were the primitives tracking them? How were they learning so fast? It was like fighting a species that evolved in real time. One by one, the Vorith ships fell. Some were destroyed in battle. Some were captured when their engines failed. Some surrendered when they realized that running was pointless. On the 4th day, only 5 Vorith ships remained. They were the fastest and strongest, carrying the highest-ranking survivors. Threxval sent a message to his pursuers. "Human vessels, we request communication. We wish to negotiate." Chris Palmer received the message and considered it. Part of him wanted to refuse. Part of him wanted to destroy the remaining ships and go home. These creatures had killed millions of his people. They deserved no mercy. But another part of him knew that capturing them was more valuable than killing them. They needed information. They needed to know where the Vorith came from. They needed to know what other threats existed in the galaxy. "This is Captain Chris Palmer of the Earth Fleet," he responded. "I am willing to talk, but you will understand something first. You are not in a position to negotiate. You are in a position to beg." Threxval appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted and afraid. His mandibles were still, not clicking anymore. The arrogance that the Vorith were known for was gone. "Captain Palmer," Threxval said, "we made a mistake. We attacked your world believing you were primitive and weak. We were wrong. We accept that now. Please allow us to return to our space. We will never threaten Earth again." Chris leaned forward. "Your people killed 14 million humans. 14 million. Families, children, people who were just living their lives when your ships came down from the sky and burned everything." His voice was cold. "You do not get to say sorry and go home. You do not get to forget what you did." "Then what do you want?" Threxval asked. "I want you to face justice," Chris said. "I know there is a Galactic Council. I know there are laws. Your species broke those laws when you attacked us. You will go to this council. You will tell them what you did, and you will accept whatever punishment they decide." Threxval was silent for a long moment. "And if we refuse?" Chris glanced at Lieutenant Garcia. She was already targeting the remaining Vorith ships. One word from him, and they would all be destroyed. "If you refuse," Chris said, "then I destroy your ships. I find your homeworld myself, and I make sure your entire species pays for what you did. The choice is yours." It was not really a choice. The Vorith ships powered down their weapons and surrendered. Human soldiers boarded them and took control. For the first time in their history, Vorith officers were prisoners. The fleet traveled together toward Galactic Council space. The journey took several weeks. During that time, Chris learned much about the galaxy from his prisoners. There were thousands of species out there. Some were peaceful, some were dangerous. All of them had heard of the Vorith Dominion, one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy. And now the Vorith were being escorted like criminals by a species that most of the galaxy had never heard of. When the fleet finally arrived at Council Space, they were met by patrol ships from a dozen different species. The aliens stared at the human vessels with a mixture of curiosity and fear. A Selvari diplomat named Keth Voran made contact. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves." Chris opened a channel. "This is Captain Chris Palmer of the United Earth Fleet. We are escorting prisoners to the Galactic Council. The Vorith Dominion attacked our planet 14 months ago. We want justice. We want to make our case before your council." There was a long pause. Chris could imagine the confusion on the other end. A species that had never been contacted was suddenly showing up with Vorith prisoners and demanding justice. Finally, Keth Voran responded. "Earth vessel, your request is unprecedented, but so is your situation. You will be escorted to Station Varith Prime. The Council will hear your case." Chris nodded to himself. "Thank you, and tell the Council to prepare themselves. They are about to learn what happens when someone attacks humanity." The human fleet followed the escorts toward the station. A new chapter in galactic history was about to begin, and humanity was going to write it in fire. You assaulted Earth? Part 5. The tribunal chamber was silent. 800 species had heard Ambassador Grixnall tell his story. They had learned how the mighty Vorith Dominion had attacked a primitive world and been utterly destroyed by it. Now they waited for what would happen next. High Arbiter Keth Voran rose from his seat. His 6 eyes looked tired. "The Council has heard the evidence against the Vorith Dominion. We have heard how they violated our most sacred laws. We have heard how they brought death to a world that had done nothing to deserve it." He paused. "Now we will hear from the species they attacked. We will hear from the humans." The great doors at the far end of the chamber opened. A single figure walked through. Ambassador Benjamin Cole was not what the Council expected. He was neither tall nor strong. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple dark uniform with no medals or decorations. But something about him made delegates shrink back in their seats. Something about the way he walked, the way he looked at them, made ancient instincts wake up, instincts that whispered danger. Ben walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. He looked around at the hundreds of alien faces staring at him. Some were curious, some were afraid, a few looked hostile. He smiled. It was a pleasant smile, but it did not reach his eyes. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," Ben said. His voice was calm and clear. "My name is Benjamin Cole. I represent the United Earth Federation. 14 months ago, your member species attacked my planet without warning. They killed 14 million of my people. They destroyed cities that took us centuries to build. They murdered families who were eating dinner when the sky turned to fire." He let those words hang in the air. "Ambassador Grixnall called us primitives," Ben continued. "He said we were weak, divided, easy to conquer. He was partly right. We were divided. We spent most of our history fighting each other. We built weapons that could destroy our own world many times over. We were very good at killing." He took a step forward, and several delegates flinched. "But here is the thing about humans. When we are divided, we fight among ourselves. When we are united, we are something else entirely." His voice hardened. "The Vorith united us. They gave us a common enemy. They taught us to stop fighting each other and start fighting together. And when we fight together, we are the most dangerous species in this galaxy." A Dralathi delegate raised a tentacle. "Ambassador Cole, the Vorith have been punished by their failure. Their fleet is destroyed. Their military is broken. What more does your species want?" Ben turned to face the Dralathi. "I want justice. I want the Vorith to pay reparations for every life they took." I want their military permanently disbanded. I want their leaders to stand trial for their crimes." He paused. "And I want a seat on this council." The chamber erupted into noise. Delegates shouted and argued. A seat on the council? For a species that had been unknown a year ago? It was unprecedented. It was impossible. Kethovoran raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Cole, the Galactic Council does not simply give seats to any species that asks. There are requirements, standards. Your people have only just achieved faster-than-light travel. You have no history with us." "We have history now," Ben said quietly. "The Vorith made sure of that. And as for our qualifications, let me explain something." He gestured toward the windows showing the stars outside. "Right now, 300 human warships are surrounding the Vorith homeworld. We built them in less than a year. We equipped them with weapons based on technology we learned from the species that attacked us. If we wanted to, we could turn that planet into rubble." The silence returned, deeper than before. "But we are not doing that," Ben continued. "We came here instead. We brought our prisoners to face your justice. We are trying to do this the right way." He looked at Kethovoran directly. "We want to be part of your community. We want to trade and share knowledge and work toward peace. We are not monsters." He let that sink in. "But we are also not victims. Not anymore. If anyone else in this galaxy decides to test us, they will find out exactly what we are capable of. We did not survive the Vorith by being weak. We survived by being stronger, faster, more determined. We survived because we refused to give up, refused to surrender, refused to die." A small counselor, a Drethkai with purple skin, spoke up. "Ambassador, you speak of peace, but your words sound like threats. How can we trust a species that shows up with warships and demands a seat at our table?" Ben's expression softened slightly. "Counselor, let me ask you a question. Before the Vorith attacked us, what were humans doing? We were exploring our solar system. We were building telescopes to look at distant stars. We were dreaming about meeting other civilizations and making friends." His voice became sad. "We were children, looking up at the sky with wonder. The Vorith taught us that the galaxy is not a friendly place. They taught us that if we want to survive, we need to be strong." He spread his hands. "I am not here to threaten you. I am here to tell you that humanity wants to be part of something greater than ourselves. But we will never be victims again. We will never let anyone burn our cities and kill our families without consequences. That is not a threat. That is a promise." The Drethkai counselor nodded slowly. "I understand, Ambassador. I think I understand your species better now." The council debated for many hours. In the end, they reached a decision. The Vorith Dominion would pay massive reparations to Earth. Their military would be reduced to a small defense force. Their leaders would face trial for crimes against a pre-contact species. And humanity would receive a seat on the Galactic Council. As the session ended, Ben walked through the great halls of Station Varath Prime. Alien delegates moved aside to let him pass. Some looked at him with respect, some with fear. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed. The Drethkai counselor caught up with him. "Ambassador Cole, may I speak with you?" Ben stopped and turned. "Of course." "You terrify them," she said quietly. "You terrify all of us. A species that went from primitive to powerful in less than a year. A species that hunted down one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy. Many are wondering what humanity will do next." Ben looked out at the stars through a nearby window. Somewhere out there was Earth, still healing from its wounds, but already reaching for the sky again. "We will do what we have always done," he said. "We will survive. We will grow. We will protect our home and our people. And if anyone leaves us alone, we will be the best friends they could ask for." And if they do not leave you alone? Ben's eyes grew hard. Then they will learn why the Vorith ran. He walked away, leaving the counselor to think about the future. A future that now included humanity. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, people looked up at the night sky. They were no longer alone. They were no longer innocent. But they were also no longer afraid. Earth had survived, and Earth would endure, no matter what the galaxy threw at them next.